off as well. We're going to just start off with the session. So, Assalamu alaikum and happy Saturday for the most of us. Thank you so much for joining our session. My name is Mariam, and I'm the current chapter lead for PWiC Toronto. This session is a joint collaboration between PWiC Toronto and the Islamabad chapter. And the workshop is being led by Muazma, who's the PWiC's president. And we have another great speaker, Dr. Amna Basharat, who's going to talk about emotional intelligence. I'm grateful to all our speakers today for taking out time from the busy schedule to join us and introduce themselves in a bit. Just want to share that the idea of conducting this workshop is to understand that we are standing at the start of the year and we see a lot of people struggling with how to map out their goals for the year and how to accomplish things in the near future. So we planned out this session for you all. Goal setting can help you in a lot of different ways, such as achieving your financial freedom, to adopting a healthy diet. It can basically impact any activity in your upcoming year and upcoming days. So take notes, make sure that you're listening to our speakers because they will be sharing a lot of tips about goal setting. And when you learn how to set goals in one area of life, it automatically becomes easier to set goals in different areas of your life, depending on your individual lifestyle, your values, and definition of success. So your goals are unique to you, and you don't need to look like anyone. Your goals don't need to look like anyone else's. So having said that, I will move on to our first speaker to introduce her. Amna, you can go ahead and start off with the introduction as well as the content that you have about emotional intelligence.
Right. Thank you, Mariam. And I'll move forward. So my name is Dr. Amna Basharat, and I am an assistant professor at FAS National University of Computer and Emerging Sciences, Islamabad. I've been a teacher for the past decade or so. I did my PhD from University of Georgia in USA, and the major was computer science, and my research spans across knowledge engineering, linked data, semantic web. So I'm really excited to be here today, and I'm going to introduce you to a skill that can absolutely change the way you see yourself. It can change the way you see the world and everyone around you. And it can absolutely change the way you go about reaching your goals in life and pursuing your goals. And I'm going to talk about why this is so important, emotional intelligence. So, yeah, you see the flicker of the heart. It all has to do with emotions, obviously. So first up, I want you to think about the forces that limit us. What is it that prevents us from achieving our full potential? Because we all have been setting goals years in, year out, but research tells us that 80% of us fall off the New Year goals in the very first month. And it's only about 5% which are able to achieve them by the time next year begins. And it is something we have all experienced every time the new year begins. You know, we are making resolutions, we are setting goals, and that's what Muazma would be sharing with you, how to set goals. But why is it that we are not able to achieve or stick to our goals? So I want you to take a minute and think about some of the reasons. And when I thought about this, two primary reasons come to my mind, and that's what I'll share with you. First of these is when we have too many competing priorities. When we are doing too many things, and when we have our feet in too many boats, you know, when we are not able to set priorities. And what does that cause? That causes distraction, that causes discouragement, and that causes overwhelm. And, you know, all of these things have to do with our emotions. Second most important thing is we get hijacked by our emotions. You know, it could be from having a bad day at work, or just having an argument with your sibling or a friend or your mother, or it could be a bad email from someone, you know, or anything, or it could be traffic on the road, and that could just ruin your day, and there goes your goals down the drain, whatever you had planned for the day. So, and especially I would like to relate this with the year 2020 that has just passed, and the pandemic we have lived through and we're still living through, we can all relate with the exhaustion that was caused by feelings of fear, uncertainty. We had to deal with uncertain situations like we never did before. As teachers, students, or whatever the profession you're in, we can all relate to the anxiety. So many of us have dealt with loss. Stress is a small word now. And, it doesn't mean that we don't experience these emotions at other times, but in particular, 2020 is a year that would go down with us as probably a year of emotions where we were almost as if we were hijacked. So what I want you to understand is that there is a very strong relationship between emotions and goals. And emotional intelligence is that critical skill that helps you master your emotions. Important that we understand the role emotion plays with goals, that every day we have about 400 emotional experiences. And whether we are aware of these experiences or not, they really drive us. And emotional intelligence is our ability to understand these emotions and then to respond to them in a way that produces productive behavior or otherwise. So I would like you to understand how emotional intelligence, or the term here I use is EQ, and I'll come to it, how it works. So imagine you bump into something, you're pinched by a needle, or you cut yourself, or any feeling of pain. It is first generated in the limbic system, or it first reaches the limbic system. That's the first part of the brain that processes it. And that's where the emotions are generated. And then they move to the rational brain, which rational brain is the one which reads or responds to these emotions. So emotional intelligence is that skill which combines the two. It's the ability to understand your emotions and then, to channel them towards appropriate behavior. And I'm sure you all agree, human beings in general, and especially Pakistanis, we are hardwired to be emotional creatures. We can all relate to the highly emotional behaviors that we have, our snap behaviors or impulse behaviors. And that's true for humans around the world. And that's something we need to check, and that's something we need to, master. That why is that lack of self-control that causes all of that I said before. So researchers say that emotions are the primary driver of our behavior, and that makes emotional intelligence a very foundational skill. And emotional intelligence, I've stated the definition here. It is the ability to recognize, interpret, and process emotions. So you can imagine this bridge between the limbic system and the rational brain. And that's the area where we are recognizing emotions, interpreting them, and then processing them. And this happens in two key areas. We do this for ourselves, but not just for ourselves. We also do this for others. Because, we're not living in isolation. And so many of our goals cannot be achieved in isolation as well. They have to be achieved by taking others along us, especially in our work settings, when we're working in teams or when we're working in organizations where, either we are dealing with upper management or we have teams that are working with us. So the key to championing your goals is, like I said, mastering your emotions, and emotions being the primary driver of your behavior. So that's the main key takeaway that I would like you to take away from this session, that you really recognize the role of emotions towards achieving your goals. And the sad truth about emotional intelligence is that as important of a skill it is not taught in our schools, and it is not built into our education system. So much emphasis is on building, knowledge and skills, or just, problem solving and analytical skills. And this is especially true in curriculum. Me being an academic myself, I see the curriculums are geared towards developing skills, towards technology in particular, but we are missing this important skill from our curriculums. And next thing that I would like us to understand is this difference between IQ and EQ. IQ is something we are all familiar with. We have been brought up with those distinctions that, this person is really smart, he has really high IQ. But EQ is now known to be a bigger determinant of success. And this is true from research. And that's something I would like us to look briefly, that if you see the primary difference between intelligence quotient and emotional quotient, you see that IQ, it has to do with problem solving, analytical skills, short-term memory. And IQ is really a measure of inherent intelligence. And EQ is how we manage behavior, how we navigate social complexities, how we make decisions. And that doesn't necessarily have to do with IQ. And it's both at personal and social competence. So EQ is a measure of your emotional intelligence, and there are tests that you can take to see where you stand. And most people, there is no criteria that if you have a high IQ, you'd be successful. So this is an image I really like, that this is sort of, we're all familiar with the iceberg analogy. So when you talk about success and happiness, the bigger of the chunk goes to EQ. And these are some statistics that I would like to share, that 90% of top performers have been found to be really high in EQ. And it's only about 20% of those performers which are high in EQ. And in my years of teaching, I have seen that students with average GPAs and test scores, when they go out into the industry and when they go out into the job markets, they do sometimes better than those with higher test averages or with very high GPAs. And vice versa, I've also seen students who are highly capable, highly smart, yet they suffer from self-esteem, self-sabotage. They have emotional issues that they're not able to cope with or deal with, and they're not able to live up to their full potential. And this is another interesting statistic that I found, that when you compare job roles with EQ scores, and the study was published by Harvard Business Review, you notice that individual contributors have lesser of EQ as compared to managers and directors. And interestingly, the higher up in the ladder you go, you tend to find that average EQ scores between senior executives and CEOs are lower than those of middle management. So definitely, we see this trend in the computing industry, especially I'll talk about on average, that students who could be really smart, they know programming really well, they're really good developers, but sometimes they struggle to make it to the middle management and beyond, because they're struggling on other fronts, which are just as important, if not more. So I would like to list some characteristics of people with high EQ. What is it that they're able to achieve? Or what are some of the benefits that if you were to work on developing your emotional intelligence, or what is it that you would gain out of it? So people with high IQ, they have full control over their emotions. They're able to manage their emotions. And when a time of crisis comes, they're able to deal with it very calmly. They're able to make sensitive decisions under stress. We have seen through the pandemic how a stressful situation and the decisions made under stress have impacted people on so many fronts. Especially, I would talk from being a teacher, and those of you who are students, you can relate to this. Decisions about exams, decisions about opening and closing of schools, and so on and so forth. People with high IQ are also better time managers because they're able to conserve their energy and then channelize it properly. A very important characteristic of these people is that they're able to understand emotions of others, and they're able to read them well and then communicate effectively, and then relate with others at a very deep level and make people feel better. And that is so important when we're working in teams. If your team member is not performing well, things don't work. And this influence and inspiration that you can create for others to act, to motivate, to work. And that's really the key for strong relationships and management of difficult situations, and this resilience when we are hit with adversity. And we can all relate with adversity, be it loss, be it disease, we have been hearing of so many deaths left in, right out. Some of you may have experienced in your close relations as well. So, and pandemic or no pandemic, adversity is with us in one form or another. So it's people with high IQ who are able to deal with these situations. They're able to embrace change and uncertainty. So how do we develop this emotional intelligence is the question that I'm sure you would be asking. So I'm going to present to you the 4 areas of emotional intelligence. And at the heart of it, you can put your goals and the motivation you have towards your goals. And all of these 4 areas are going to contribute towards you achieving your goals. First and foremost, your own self-awareness. And I'll talk a bit more about it. Second is self-management. So once you become aware of your own behavior, your own emotions, then you're able to regulate it. So this is also called self-regulation or regulating your emotions. And if you're not able to regulate your own emotions, then that's going to have a negative consequence for your behavior. And, so this is the self-management part. Second is social awareness, and then relationship management. So if you notice that this quadrant is about what you are able to see, what you're able to understand, and then what you are able to do or act. So it's about understanding and recognition, and then management and action. And this is on 2 fronts, on the personal front and on the social front. So there is this element of personal competence and social competence. So it begins by you understanding yourself, that when you start ranking yourself, assessing yourself alongside this quadrant, that what is your strength and what is your weakness, and then building yourself accordingly. This field is very, very extensive. This is taught in business schools and executive schools and even in organizations. So it is really vital that you invest your time and energy in learning about this. And it's really difficult for me to pack all of these areas into this short talk, but I will give you some strategies. I will give you some key, you can say bullet points, or you can call these silver bullets for developing emotional intelligence. And whatever I'm sharing with you will fall into one of these 4 quadrants. So I've already said the key is knowing yourself. The emotionally intelligent people are self-aware and have a realistic appreciation of what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, how they come across to others. And, they're able to, by doing this, by developing self-awareness, they're able to. One really interesting exercise that I do with my students is peer feedback on an emotional front. And I give the students, ask your friends, ask your family members to help you improve. If they're the ones who know you best and they're the ones who give you feedback. So once you take that feedback with an open mind and an open heart, it really helps you identify that how you come out to others, and it helps you develop self-awareness about yourself. A lot of us are quite defensive. When others give us feedback, we take it defensively, or we are, quick to respond or quick to react impulsively. So instead of just sit down and look at others' feedback about yourself and your own strengths and weaknesses as well. And then learning your triggers. So it's very much linked to the notion of self-awareness, that how we respond to particular situations. So for instance, think about the last time you were under pressure. How did you feel, and how did you act? What are the kind of feelings that, when triggered, hinder you? So when you recognize these emotions and the source of these emotions, you can begin to shift your emotional state. And linked to this idea that I've mentioned is this idea of emotional boundary. So here's how I would like you to think about it. Emotional boundary, think about, when you have precious valuables and you protect them or you safeguard them. So it's like all of us, we have this emotional energy reserve. And it's just one reserve of energy that either gets consumed in our emotions, or it gets consumed in our decision making or ideas or the work we do or the behavior. So we need to become conscious of this emotional boundary, and we need to keep a careful watch. It's like you protect your door with security cameras, and you watch who's coming, and you want to safeguard your home. Just like that, you want to watch for who's entering your emotional realm, who tends to drain you emotionally. So you open the door of your emotional boundary to those who give you positive energy, not to those who drain you. So that is, and the related point to this is, you prevent emotional drain and exhaustion. You're able to identify elements of negativity around you and toxicity. And I say this is both within and around. I see a lot of people, they have a lot of low self-esteem, and they have, they talk negative about themselves and others. It's that kind of complaining attitude that we carry all the time. Either we have people around us who are complaining all the time, or we are ourselves complaining all the time. So identifying that when you are in a complaining mode or when you're in a venting mode all the time, you tend to drain yourself, and that causes exhaustion. So you need to, like I said, that this is related to the previous point I made about safeguarding your emotional boundary, that you need to prevent this and be very cognizant of this. And that's the same point that conserving emotional energy is the key to staying motivated towards your goals. If you're going to surround yourself with a negative rhetoric, that's going to only cause harm towards your goal-seeking strategies. And when you are aiming to maintain a healthy and positive focus, that's going to enable you to have this optimism. That's going to give you this passion and drive, continuous passion and drive, because so many of us start out big, start out passionate, start out motivated, but then we lose it. And that's the key, that we have to identify that what is it that is making us lose our energy and motivation. So preserving it at every cost. Till this point, I've primarily talked about the personal aspect of emotional intelligence, which is the self-management or personal competence. Next is when we deal with others. And the first and most important thing when it comes to dealing with others is that when you make a conscious effort to empathize, when you make a conscious effort to understand others, and when you see things from someone else's perspective, and when you try and understand their values, their beliefs, then it helps you build healthy relations. So we need to make conscious effort to get to know all those who have a direct influence upon us, and especially all those who have a direct influence upon our goals. So, you could ask open questions, especially active listening is a strategy for understanding others. And then, there are so many other things. If you read upon empathy, you'll find tons of material on how to be more empathetic towards others. And, there are a ton of things you can do. One thing is, when you have a sense of respect for people around you, both in your personal and professional lives, that goes a long way. If you are not going to be encouraging and supportive of others, others won't do the same for you. So you need to appreciate, show gratitude. And with this, a very important element in social competence is that you need to recognize your boundary of control and influence. When it comes to emotions, you can check your own emotions, you can manage your own emotions, but you cannot fully control the emotions and behaviors of others. You can only positively influence them. When you start to recognize it, it cuts out those excuses where we're so easy to put the blame on others. That, I am having this problem because of this person, or I am not able to do this because of that person. So this shifting of blame needs to be cut out. You need to identify that what is your boundary of control. You're not responsible for others' behaviors or others' emotions. Yes, you can exert positive influence on those around you, but at the same time, you can also exert negative influence on those people. So one, you should be cognizant of not being that negative influence, not being that source of negative energy for others. So preventing yourself from that, and at the same time, recognizing what you can control. So it always begins with the self, and then once you become positive and once you become energetic, then that same energy would translate. And when you're in difficult situations, it is really important to take responsibility, especially in relationships when we are dealing with difficult relationships. That we own our emotions and we take responsibility for the way we interact. Last couple of points on this note, and I think these are the most important ones in my opinion. When you start to build emotional intelligence from both these perspectives, what this enables you is to develop a resilience mindset, that you're able to be resilient in the face of adversity. So if you recognize that you are being stressed or there are sources of stress, you learn to manage stress. If there's uncertainty, you embrace it and you deal with it rather than panicking or complaining. And then that's what is going to inculcate positivity. So there's this research that I really would like to share with you, that this very little act of gratitude. So for example, one way to mitigate stress is that you become more grateful. You start to recognize that what is it that you have. Yes, you're having problems, but there are things you can be grateful for. So just by being grateful, or just by appreciating others, or just being grateful in your own self, can lower the stress hormone by 23%. And this is this simple practice. I would like to share that when I was teaching the course last fall, I started this practice of motivating students to express more gratitude, to the extent that we designed a theme where they had to design apps in one of the course, where the theme was around how can we build, how can we use technology to increase positivity and gratitude in people, be it students, teachers, or any target audience they choose from. And this turned out to be such an interesting exercise for me, that by this simple change of thought process, without changing the curriculum or the process, I saw students were more motivated. They were able to meet better deadlines and do better work. So I really can talk from experience that just the simple act of gratitude in our personal and professional lives can go a long way. And then also listening to the cues of your body. So sometimes when we are in a meeting and our muscles tense up, our body gives us these stress calls that we need to listen to. So we should rationalize that and act accordingly. Last but not the least, this is something I talk from personal experience as well, that you need to invest in your faith. As much as I've studied and researched about emotional intelligence, I see that principles which are derived from our faith, our religion, are highly grounded in the principles of emotional intelligence. So, once you approach things with this sincerity and wisdom, and you dwell on patience, positivity, perseverance, we can all relate to how we call out to our mothers, or, to our friends, that, make dua for us or pray for us. And we have this trust that, our Lord is looking out for us. That's what really grounds us and, gives us that energy to keep going. And, there are things like death and loss that sometimes there is no other way to make peace with it. And sometimes you need to let go. And COVID has taught all of us that, we have all learned to let go of our plans because there are greater plans which are beyond our control. So when we invest in our faith, we learn acceptance, we have this understanding and greater appreciation of what we aren't going to be able to do, regardless of our efforts and hard work. And I've also mentioned forgiveness here. You cannot eliminate negativity and negative sentiment from your life unless you practice forgiveness. So I talked about gratitude, and forgiveness is another one, because we carry this bitterness and we carry this remorse and these negative emotions that are so hindering. Sometimes we don't even forgive ourselves. So letting go and forgiving goes a long way as well. So I will end here by saying that we need to learn emotional intelligence as a guide to our thinking and behavior, and both personal and personalized. And I wish you all the best on the road to improving your EQ and achieving all your goals. So thank you so much, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Amna. We have a couple of questions. There's one question that is, in this time of technology, we have a lot of stuff to consume. So how can it affect our decision-making power under the EQ, and how to overcome it?
Right. I think it's a very relevant and a very good question. You can call this information overload or content overload. The way I have learned, or I'm trying to go about this is, you set, sometimes you have to have this detox mechanism that, you have to set certain time limits. So it's a lot about discipline as well. You have to recognize that, okay, when I'm consuming too much of screen time or too much of content, that's just overload. So one idea of active learning really helps. So let's say you start to learn about emotional intelligence. You limit yourself. You can do some initial research, identify some potential content areas, but then start with one and just stick to it until you have completed it and applied it. So I think that's the way to overcome the overwhelm. That otherwise you would be completely drowned and consumed without really making any effective progress. And that's one thing I would like to say, that theoretically all of this sounds really fancy and nice to have, but it's easier said than done. And it is with active conscious practice that you would be able to, incorporate these things into your life. So it comes with active practice. So whatever you're learning, and if it's not being translated into active practice, it's not going to be of benefit. So you need to analyze, really.
Great, thank you. There's one other question we'll take right now, and then maybe the rest of that, Amna, you can reply in the chat. The other question that is relevant is, are we born with high or low EQ, or we basically learn it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So IQ is something which is inherent. They say that, people are born with a high IQ. Yes, you can nourish it. But with EQ, the good news is that it's not an inbuilt thing. We have a personality type, which is built into us. So some of us are naturally introverts versus extroverts. But that has nothing to do with EQ. EQ is a skill that you can, with practice and with knowledge, you can build it. So that's the good news.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Amna, for such a great talk on EQ, and it's very, very relevant to the next section, talking about goal setting. I would go ahead and share my screen, and we do have a couple of more questions in the chat. Once I start my session, maybe you can go ahead and respond in the chat, Amna, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, sure, I'll do that. So I can stop sharing my screen, I guess.
Yes, and let me share my screen. Okay, great. I hope you all can see my screen, which is about goal setting workshop. If somebody can confirm, that would be awesome.
Yes.
Great. Okay, so I think whatever Dr. Amna shared, that's very, very relevant to why we're not able to achieve our goals. And this workshop is all about achieving your goals and making sure you are ready to set the right goals in the right way, and then actually go and get them. And I will be talking about how do you set the goals the right way, how do you plan, how do you prioritize, how do you declutter your goals, and basically how do you go and get them. So at any point, again, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the chat. I will get to them towards the end of the session. I will not go in much detail about myself, but currently I'm president of Pakistani Women in Computing. I'm really, really happy to see so many of you today here in this session, and I lead a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts at my work and outside of work as well. And I am really passionate about mentoring people and helping them and making sure they have the equal opportunities that they need to succeed in their careers. So that's why, to me, goal setting is really, really important. And I spend a lot of time with my mentees understanding how they can achieve their goals. We all have goals. Like, there's nobody out there that does not have goals. Even if you don't say that this is our goal, we all have certain goals to achieve in our life. And how do we actually plan? How do you actually go about getting them? That's the goal of this session. And I hope that you get something out of it and you're able to achieve and plan and prioritize your goal after this session. So I always start this session by saying that we all have the same amount of time in a day, right? Everybody in this world has the same amount of minutes in a day, which is around 1440 minutes in a day. What we do with those minutes is really, really important. And I have at the end of my presentation a very good reference to a book about 7 habits of a really productive people, right? And productivity is also relevant. There is no one way of saying that this person is very productive and this person is not. And the main difference is, what do you do with that time that we all have together, right? We all have the same amount of minutes in a day. So how we do in that, and what I really want to kind of pledge for you, is to spend 30 minutes in your day for yourself. Whatever you want to call it. Is it self-care? Is it your goal setting? Is it your kind of end of day rewinding? Whatever you want to call it. But just make a pledge today that you're going to take 30 minutes out of this 1440 minutes that you have got in a day for yourself. And that is the starting point for a successful and a productive career, personal, professional, whatever your goals are. There is another thing that we all know, that we all have, a human generally does actually around 35,000 different decisions in a day on average. A lot of them are unconscious. For example, what toothbrush you have, what color of clothes you usually go towards, or where do you go and get your breakfast in the day, and things like that. But then there are a lot of these decisions that are conscious. So I want you all to kind of pledge today that you are going to focus 30 minutes in your day for yourself, for your goals, for whatever you want to achieve. So that's the first thing I want to start with. There is this famous quote that I really, really love. This is something that I live by every single day, which says that either you run the day or the day runs you, right? So if you are not going to plan your day, if you're not going to tell what you're going to do in that day, then everything else that comes during the day is going to consume those 1440 minutes, right? If you don't know what you want to do in that day, then whatever is your regular schedule, whatever is your family things, there is emergencies, there is somebody sick in your home, whatever is there, it's going to consume your day. And as a human, as Amna was also saying, there is no way to run out of these things. These things that keep going to happen. They are not going to stop. There are going to things that happen every single day. Sometimes somebody is sick, somebody is going through something. We are emotional human beings, right? So we go through a lot of these things during the day. But if you don't really decide what you want to do with your day, there is no way you can actually go and achieve your goals, the goals that you want to do. So it's really, really important. And why I'm doing all of this preparational stuff before we actually get to the goals is to understand that we all want to be a gold medalist, right? We all want to be a gold medalist, let's say in Olympics. But what we all don't want is to train like Olympian. So it's really, really important to understand that if you want certain goals, you have to be consistent. You have to train every single day. You have to work hard towards those goals. It's always easy to have those goals, but not work towards them and not take the steps towards them. So this whole goal setting workshop is to make sure that you understand that how do you make that big fancy goal that you have into smaller achievable steps, so you can actually plan your day accordingly, you can prioritize your day accordingly, and then eventually get to that. So if there is one thing you take out of this session today, is that how do you actually plan, how do you actually spend those 30 minutes for yourself towards your goal? And I'm going to keep repeating this as many times as possible, so you kind of take it towards the end of this workshop with you, and you remember it and you start practicing it. And I'm here after this. I'll share my links and all of that, where you can connect with me afterwards as well. A lot of people ask me, for example, I have a full-time job. I have a couple of nonprofit work that I do. I have 3 kids that I have to take care of. I have a home that I take care of. I have lots of other things. Like, for example, one of my kids is, for example, sick, or something else happened in my life, right? There is a lot of work on my plate. And then a lot of people ask me that you have it all. I tell them the first thing, no, there is no such thing as having it all. If you take one thing, you have to let go of another thing. There is no way you can stretch yourself beyond certain number of hours in a day that you can actually go and do things. We all have the same amount of time. We all have almost the same amount of energy in us, like the way we spend our day. So how do we focus our time? And I am really to the level of OCD. I plan my day in very, very, very detail, and that's how I get things done. So that's why I want to share all of that with you, so you can have that tips and tricks and things, so you can plan about your goals and go about that. So there is also this another saying, a lot of people quote this, is like, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. There is a twist on it that I say, if you don't know where you're going, you will never end up there. It's really important for me to understand that. And I really, really believe that, because if you don't really set certain goals, even if they are in your mind, you don't write them and you don't put yourself accountable for them, you are never going to get to that point. You might end up there accidentally, and that might be by luck or whatever other factors that you have in your life. But if you don't really work towards them step by step, there is no way you can get there. And I don't know of my tech career, 14 plus years or beyond, know anybody that has been like that, actually achieved their goals without working towards them, being it consciously or unconsciously. Some people, you say luck is there, not, and all of that. We can debate on that for hours, but working towards your goals is a step, and you have to really work hard towards them, and make yourself accountable, make the people around you accountable for that. And I'll share some more tips around that. How do you do that? So let's talk about goals, right? I divide goals into 3 categories. And then if you search goal setting today on Google or Bing, wherever, you'll find like hundreds or maybe thousands of articles on how people do that. There is a lot of research being done in this area. There is a lot of great things people have done about it. How I define or how I do it for myself, again, this workshop is based on my experience, based on the things that I have done. They might not be all right, but this is something that has worked for me, is that I divide them into 3 categories. There are my short-term goals, there are my long-term goals, and there are some goals that I have aspirational. For example, a good example of a short-term goal could be, I want to write a blog, or I want to talk at some conference XYZ about XYZ topic, right? Some of my long-term goals could be, if I'm learning a new, let's say, platform or a framework, I want to learn a certain version of that or certain library about it. Let's say in Python, there's a new library, and I want to go and learn that. I really want to become a subject matter expert in that. So that's my long-term goal. And why it's long-term, not short-term? Because to become some expert in something, you need to practice it enough times that you can answer most of the questions, you can actually solve most of the problems. That's why it cannot be done in like 1 month, 2 months. So it is a long-term goal. And this is really important for you to actually divide this in terms of time, because some things we can do in like a couple of weeks, some things we can do in months, some things it can take us years to get to that point. So again, defining your goal and understanding if it's a short-term goal, mid-term goal, or a long-term goal. And then eventually, if something is aspirational could be anything, right? Aspirational could be, I want to become a rocket scientist. It's just something that let's say I want to put it out there, and this is something I really want, right? Or I want to own a company, or I want to do XYZ. The reason to write them down, the first step is to write them down, is to just take a piece of paper. If you have a piece of paper or pen right now, I would like you to all write down some of your short-term, long-term, and aspirational goals, and think about that from time perspective. Think about that from a perspective that can be done in the time that you have. So if you're not the speaker, please mute yourself. Let me mute one person. Okay. So make sure that you kind of divide that in that sense. So write down your goals, write down your short-term goals, write down your long-term goals, and write down your aspirational goals. That's the first step. Next, a lot of you already know about it because I looked at the form that you filled for this workshop is SMART goals, right? A lot of you knew about it before coming to this workshop. But what I want, and we will do this exercise towards the end of this workshop, is I'll give you a goal and I'll ask you to write them in a way that it is SMART. What is SMART? S means specific. So let's say if I have a goal to learn Python, right? That goal is not specific. I need to be specific about, I need to learn Python version XYZ to do data science for XYZ. It needs to be specific enough that I can go and do it. It cannot be as generic as possible, like I want to learn Python. That's not good enough. The second thing you need to do is for it to be measurable, and I cannot emphasize enough on it. How do you know that you've achieved your goal? How do you know that you've actually got to that point? So that's the second point. For this same example, what I'm going to say is that I am going to go on LeetCode. LeetCode is a famous website where you can go and do different challenges on different programming languages. Again, I'm taking this example because this is relevant to my industry. You can take any of your goals and do that. And that's the exercise you should do for each and every goal that you wrote on the previous slide. For being this goal, what I will say that I am going to go and LeetCode for 3 weeks, and I'm going to solve a challenge every single day and make sure I solve 75% of those problems. This is something how I'm going to measure that if I have actually learned Python the right way or not. This is one way to measure it, right? There are so many other ways you can measure it. You actually have to define your measuring ways for a particular goal before you actually start working towards it. Because again, as I said, if you don't know where you're going, you will never end up there, and you will not know when you've actually achieved and taken the steps towards that goal. The third part is really, really important. When you're writing a goal, write down, is it achievable or not? Because if it's not achievable, then it's not a short-term or a long-term goal. It's actually an aspirational goal that you should actually plan long-term towards that and take steps and get mentors and other people to help you to get to that aspirational goal. So it's really important for you to do that. And it's really important for you to understand if this goal is achievable or attainable or not. And why I would say that in this case, in Python example, I would say, yes, it's attainable. If I work really hard every single day, at least every other day I work on this, I would be able to achieve that. The third thing is relevant, right? Why I'm going to do that. There are certain goals that you would say that, let's say you want to do something, right? If it's not relevant to you and it's not gives you any kind of emotion, if it's not related to anything that you're doing in your day or your work or job or relationships, you are going to get demotivated very fast, and there is no way you can actually go and achieve that goal. So you have to really know why it is relevant to you. In this example, again, going back to the Python example, it's important, it's relevant because this is the work that I do. This is related to it might be related to my next promotion. It might be related to something that I'm going to start working on a new project soon. So I need to learn Python for that. So whatever is this for you, you have to write it down in a way that it's relevant to you. And last but not least, if you cannot do anything of that, make sure you have this time bound. So two things in this SMART which are really important for me is the M and the T. How do you measure it and how do you actually know that you have done it? So time bounded, because if you don't time bound it, then you can go on and on for like months and years and you will not be able to get to it. So whatever you set to start with, you should time bound it that I will learn Python version XYZ by doing these problems every week and learning this XYZ and this is how it's relevant to me in 6 months. That's important, because you have to put down a time associated with that. If you don't, then again, it's basically you're never going to get to that point. So this is like the key of everything that I'm talking today. And we will do one exercise in about, so this workshop is about 45 minutes or so. We will go over 1 hour. So if you have other things after 1 hour, you feel free to leave. We will share the recording of this as well. But this whole thing is almost an hour and a half hour for this workshop to finish. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to write them in the chat. I will take them towards the end. There's this other book that I really, really like. It's related to the M in the SMART goals, which is measurable. I have this book on my side table or nightstand, and I've read this book many times actually. And this is important for me as a manager of managing a team where I actually set out goals for my team, right? I actually set out goals and strategy for my org in certain cases. So for me to know this, how do I actually measure those goals for my team and keep them accountable for those, right? All of the stuff that I've already talked about, it's important for me to do that. And there is this concept called OKRs. I have in the last slide as a resource for you to go and actually read that. Even if you don't buy this book, there is a link that you can go and read about them. So OKR is a term called objective key results. And I don't want to go into a lot of detail in that, but it's very relevant to the goal settings, right? For any work related stuff, anything in your organization, there is this thing called objective key results, and you have to define that for any goal that you have it for your organization. And in Microsoft, for example, every 6 months planning that we do, we use this OKR model to actually define what are we going to achieve as a team. Because if you are not good at doing this goal setting for one person, as you grow in your career as a team lead, as a manager, as a director, as a VP, whatever, you will not be able to do these things for an org. And this is a really important thing. And I love this thing that is mentioned in this book as well. That ideas are easy, execution is everything, right? So it applies to the goals. The goal is basically an idea that you have in your mind. So if you don't really execute towards it, if you don't really take the steps towards it, and the analogy I already shared about being an Olympian, if you don't train every single day for the marathon that you want to run, you're never going to get that gold medal, right? So a lot of us actually work, do this, have these goals, but we are not willing to actually do the work towards these goals. So it's really, really important. And that's why most of our goals fail, because we don't keep ourselves, we don't actually keep ourselves accountable for it, and we don't really work hard towards it. So check this out. I will share the link of the OKRs as well at the end. So now that you know what a goal is, and now that you have set up the goals for yourself, right? Let's say now you have a clear idea about 2 or 3 main goals that you have. We will talk a little bit about like how many goals you should have and all of that as well. But let's say you have 3 goals in like 6 months that you want to go and achieve, and you have a good idea about what you need to do every single day for those goals, and you have a good idea about what it takes to actually get there, because you have already done your research. In the previous example that I was taking about being Python, I've done my research that I have to do consistent coding for at least 3 months to get to that point, right? So how do you make sure that those things are really getting done in the right way and the right order and priority? So it's really, really, really important. And I cannot emphasize enough on this. As I was taking my example earlier on, every single day you have so much stuff to do, right? And the same hours, same minutes that everybody has. You have your personal life, you have your professional life, you have the family obligations, you have unforeseen things, somebody getting sick, somebody might have any even worse, God forbid, somebody can die. Anything can happen, right, in your life that you can't predict. So things that you can't predict, there are really not much that you can do about them, right? But the things and the hours that you can predict, and you know that you have to do that, right? Or the goals that you already have, how do you actually prioritize? And I cannot sign enough for it. The only way I get my things done is doing a lot of prioritization during my day. And it applies to my work, it applies to my nonprofit work, it applies to my my work for my team, because I have to prioritize what they have to work on as well, right? In some cases, they would come to me and say, like, we have 2 tasks and tell us which one is more important. So how do you define that? How do you do that? So this is a great example. This is again something well thought out. It's not done by me. It's been there for a lot of years. And this is a great way of doing it. This is something I use in my daily tasks and things. So how I do it is basically I look at a task and I see, is it important? And how much time do I need to do it? Like, how much time does it need? So if, let's say, I have 5 tasks and I divide them into these two basic parameters. One parameter is how much time it needs to be done, 1 day, 2 day, 5 days, whatever, few hours, and how important is it? So if you, let's say you have 5 tasks towards the goal. So previously we talked about goals, right? So take one goal and you have 5 things to do for that goal, right? Write it down, how much time it takes for each. And then how important is it for that goal to do? This is for one goal. You can do it for all of them. This is something you need to do to actually prioritize that. And divide them into these 4. So when you actually end up doing these 4 quadrants, what you will see is, you will see a pattern. You'll see a pattern for the things that you're spending too much time, but they're not really important. And then there would be some that are really, really important, but you're not spending enough time on them. Or there could be cases where you're spending a lot of time, but they are not important at all, right? So when you divide your tasks into these 4 quadrants, look at the ones at the very bottom, the one which I'm saying this is bad. If you have things you're spending a lot of time on, which are not prioritized, which are not important, like a good example is spending time on social media, which might not align to your personal goals in certain cases, unless you are an influencer and that's where you are doing your marketing and all of that, then that's a great example to spend less time on it, right? So it's a very easy exercise for us to do. Anyone can go and do that. You just take 1 day in your life. Let's just take 1 day, like yesterday, whatever you did, write down everything you did. And then you actually write it down in these quadrants and fill this up. And you should be able to know right away where you should spend more time, where you should spend less time, and how you should go about it. So I think somebody is asking this question, is there any app or a notebook? A really great question. Actually, I have resources for this. So I've created worksheets for this. I do this exercise in my work. So it's something I do, and I will share that resources with you. So there's basically a worksheet that you can get out of this at the end of the presentation, and you can print it out and print it as many times for as many goals you have. And I have this over there so you can use it. And if you search online also, you'll find a lot of these templates. But these are the ones that work for me. If you look for, as I said, if you search for goal setting, there are like hundreds of different templates, different people do it different ways. This is really that work for me, and I will share the link with you, and I have the resources for you. Moving on, it's related to the previous slide. Prioritization, as I said, is the key. So we all have goals. We all know what we want to do to get to those goals, let's say at this point. And then we all know that how much time we are spending on those goals, how they are for whatever you want to achieve. So at this point, we have established these 3 things. So the next thing is how urgent they are, right? Depending on the day or week you are having. This is a very old method, and these 2 folks that I have on the screen here, they are well-known people in this industry, and they have written like a lot of great material on this. And this is their simpler version of how they do. And I like things simple. I'm a very data-oriented person. I like zeros and ones. So this is a very simple way of looking at things. And I literally look at whatever comes my way. Like if it's somebody being sick, or a new task for PWiC, or a new task at my work, or a new project, whatever is a new item that I'm taking, I actually look at this in this way. I look at it literally in this way, and I look at it, is it urgent? Is it not urgent? And then, is it important? Is it not important? And then, of course, the 3rd quadrant, how much time I would get to it to do that in the previous slide that we already talked about, right? But if it's, let's say it's urgent and it's important, then I have to do it. I'll go do it, right? Somebody getting sick, they need my help. I need to go do it. There's no running away from it, right? Unless you have help, and you can ask somebody, and of course, always ask for help. But that's the first thing. If there's something is not urgent and still it's important, So these are your goals, right? These are the things that you want to aspire, you want to learn, you want to grow, you want to get this new next title, promotion, whatever that is. Then you have to plan. If you don't plan, as I said in the quote, you will never get there. You will maybe get there with luck, but there is really science and history shows, and my like long career in tech shows that there is no way you can get to that if you don't work towards it, if you don't train every single day towards it as a Olympian. So those are the things you need to take those steps towards. So you have to plan, and that planning is all the goal setting and stuff that I already talked about. The third quadrant is if there's urgent but not important, you can always delegate. You don't have to spend your time on it. Ask somebody else to do it. For example, cooking food. It's important, but you maybe it's not urgent in some cases. So you can always ask somebody else to go pick up the food or clean the house or whatever that thing is that you have to do it. And it could be urgent as well, but it might not be important for you. So you can ask somebody else to do that. And then the last quadrant is if it's not urgent or not important. And that's the hardest thing, right? A lot of people, we have a lot of stuff that we do, which is to eliminate. And we hold on to the things that we shouldn't be doing, and we know we shouldn't be doing, but we keep doing it because of whatever reason. And one example is the same, spending so much time on social media is something that we do. So I have put like literally what I do, I have blocks of time in my calendar where I don't keep my phone near me. Like it's far away, it's hard for me to even go and get there to get my phone. So there is no way that I'll be on social media during those times. And those time is, let's say, dedicated for my family. So I would not be replying to any messages in that time to anyone, whoever, even if the president of the world or whoever is there comes and goes, because they can't reach me. And that's as simple as that. You have to, in some cases, make physical barriers between you and what you want to do and what's more important to you. And that time is important for me to spend time with my family. I would not spend that on social media or anywhere. So there's several techniques, things like that you can do for any goal that you have. And again, figure out a way how you can eliminate them in your life. So this is the book that I was talking about. Again, there is a very good YouTube video. I'll share these slides afterwards as well, and I can keep this for a while if you want to take a screenshot of this. But this is the book. It's like a book that everybody should read. If you don't read the book, let's say you don't have time to read the book, at least go to this YouTube link. There is a summary of that book there. And these are like the 7 habits of a productive people, highly effective people who can get things done. And this effective people doesn't need to be a CEO of the company, doesn't need to be the Bill Gates or anyone like that. It's people who get things done, people who get around the work that they really need to do and they achieve their goals. And those could be everyday people. They don't need to be those big CEOs and the most richest people in the world. If that's the goal, then yeah, of course, that work towards it. But for me, it's important to get things done and be sane at the same time, right? When I'm going through my day. So this is a really good book. There's a really good video about it. Read about it, and I'm sure it will help you in your goals, whatever you have. So one last thing I want to talk about, and then we'll go towards the workshop section, is sustainability. So I think Dr. Amna briefly touched upon it, and it's really important that I think I'm really happy that she did, is most of us, why our goals fail, that we start with these fancy plans. Let's say we plan it, we do it, and everything is going great. But what we do is we put all of our energies in the first 2 or 3 weeks towards it, and then we forget about it. And then we become lazy and work toward it. So it's very, very important that you sustain. And I've highlighted this section, and my screen that I'm sharing is on this side. So I'm going to look towards it and read it loud for you. That it's important for you to sustain. And this sustainability curve is something that I really, really love. And this is, again, not something built by me. This is well established thing. That you want to push hard enough to make progress, but not so much that it is unsustainable. So if you go out today, let's say you want to lose weight, and today you go and just like do 2 hours of exercise. The next day you might do 1 hour, and then you will like 1 hour, few days, and then you will forget about it. Instead, what science has shown, research has shown, if you start walking today, every single day, let's say do 1,000 step, next day do 1,500 step, next day do 2,000 step. If you go take that approach, that's more sustainable. And research has shown that, and data has shown that. So definitely look into that. So whenever you set a new goal, begin working toward it. The single most important thing is showing up. That's the most important thing. Every single day, show up for your goal. Work towards that goal, whatever is that. If you just show up, that's enough. If you just show up and do a little bit about it, that's enough. If the Python goal that I talked about, if I just start my day and just write, let's say 5 lines of code every single day, that is enough. And I know with experience, I'm telling you with experience that if you do at least that, you will eventually get to that point. But if you just go all in first day and the second day and the first week, and then you don't have any way to be accountable for it, you don't have no way to measure it, there's no way you can get to it. So it's very important. And I love this talk actually by Athar Imran in our PWiC event that we did last year. He also mentioned this as one of the key habits, and really loved it, because hardworking people who actually show up every single day, if you look on average, they have achieved way more than the folks who just show up and do random stuff and then disappear. So it's important for you to do that. And especially these days when we are working from home or we have so much going on in our life, we can get burned out very easily. So it's important for you to understand that. So that's the burnout fun and sustainability. So it was important for me to mention that, because we all have goals. We all want to go today. Let's say after this presentation, you got really excited about certain things. You're going to go and plan everything and you go all in. But if you don't show up every single day towards your goal, you're not going to get that. And I'll be very crystal clear on that. So you have to show up. You have to work hard every day towards it. So at this point, I would like you all to actually go to this link, and let me go share that in the chat as well. So on this link, what you will find is basically a goal, and I want you to do this exercise with me to actually make it a SMART goal. You all will be anonymous in that, so don't worry about that. This would be, so if anybody has any issues getting to that link, let me know. Let me share that link in the chat as well. Okay, so I see one person already here. Let me share the link here as well. Yeah, thank you, Aisha, for doing that. So the purpose of this one is that I have a goal that I want to lose weight, right? This is the example I want us to all do. And you can take a paper or pen and do a version of it for yourself as well. How you will do that, let me share my screen here to show you how you can do that. So go on towards the left, there are these sticky notes. Take a sticky note and write, how can you make this goal specific? So just choose one color for one thing. So let's say in this case, yellow we'll choose for specific, green we'll choose for M, A, R, and T. So how can I make this specific? Anybody has any ideas? They can unmute themselves and share that. So I have an idea that I want to lose 5 pounds. And I'll make this yellow. And I'll put this under specific. Let me erase that. So somebody wrote eat healthy. We'll talk about it in a second, but eat healthy is not being specific, right? It's not being specific to this goal. This is something you'll do to actually get to that point. And it's a good place to put it, but yeah, let's talk about that. So I want you all to actually go in and put these things. How do you think you can make it measurable? How do you think you can make it attainable? How do you think you can make it relevant? And how do you think you can make it timely? Yeah. Yeah, so keep doing that. You don't have to just do for a specific. Others can actually start on measurable, attainable, and others as well. So yeah. So whoever is on here, actually use this sticky note option, not the marker or anyone. So just when you click on sticky note, great. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of great ideas coming in. So why we are doing this right now is this is something you have to do for your goals. You have to make them SMART goals. You have to make them specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. And as you write it down, the goal gets more clear to you because as I said, we all start with these very high level goals that I want to learn this, or I want to be XYZ, or I want to learn or be the best in this. But once you start doing the specific stuff like this one, you get to know if really it's achievable or not, if this is something you can do in next 3 months or 6 months or not, if this is something that you can, is it really relevant to you, or will it be relevant to you in like 6 months or not? And one thing a lot of people ask me this question is like, you set on a goal, let's say you're working towards it every single day, and then something else happens in your life. Let's say you got your job changes, or you get laid off, or something else happens, and that goal becomes irrelevant. So a thing that I do a lot is really cleaning up my goals, is looking at my goals from an objective, like from a perspective, let's say a third person's perspective, and really seeing if this is still relevant, if this is still something that I want to do. If it's not, then eliminate it. Take it out from your plan and do not do that anymore. So this is something you can, you have to do it. I do it on weekly basis, literally on weekly basis. I look at the stuff that I've been working on for last 3 months, and I make sure that I remove the stuff which are not relevant. This could be tiny things, for example, cleaning up my drawer. And believe me or not, if you actually look at the same goal for 3 weeks, you will know that if it's still relevant to you or not. And if you keep doing it and make it a habit, it will really kind of help you in the long term. So I would all, like, this link would be there for a while. I will not close it. Keep working on towards this, on this goal. Make sure you actually make it specific, we make it measurable, make it attainable, relevant, and timely, and keep working on this. This link would be up even after the workshop is done. I will close it in like a couple of days, and I will actually send you a summary of what you all wrote here, and then maybe some suggestion on this goal from my perspective as well. Again, there is no right and wrong way. Everybody has their goals in different ways. Everybody has their own restrictions. For example, in my case, I might be able to go to gym every single day, or might be able to use machine that I might have at home. In some cases, you will not. So your way of achieving that goal might be different than mine. So there is no single way of doing the same goal. But what I want is a good example for you all to understand and use that for your goals and make them smart and make them achievable. So I hope that actually helped. And this is like something you have to do for all of your goals. So taking on onto the same thing, just summarizing some of the examples of SMART goals, similar examples. For example, the same example that I already shared, I want to learn Python, right? How do I make it specific? I will learn Python version XYZ to do the data science work that I do. How will I make measurable? I will measure my progress by doing lead code challenges every week. How can I attain this is I will join this Python group. I will find a buddy or a mentor to work with me to code every week and find some help, right? So if the other problem that we all face, and I think Amna touched upon it a little bit as well, is when we get stuck, what do you do in that situations? Because if you are not finding the help, then again, you will let go of that goal. So in those situations, definitely find that. Relevant, is it's relevant? Yes, it's relevant because it will help in my job search that I'm doing for data science. This is an example for that. And then time-based, I will complete. This is something I will complete. I'm putting myself accountable that I will complete 3 projects using Python in 6 months, and then I put them on my GitHub. That's where I kind of end it, right? So this is a good framework for me to know that if I've done all of these things, I've actually achieved my goal. So this is a good example for a SMART goal. This is a good way of doing this. And then I divide this into tasks and all of the things that I already talked about being prioritizations and other things. The other example is I want to grow my business. I will not spend a lot of time on it, but again, making it smart, making sure that you have exact plan of how you want to grow your business, because just saying I want to grow my business is not enough. How do you attain it? How do you make it measurable? How do you work towards it? It's really important. So at this point, I would just like to summarize everything that we talked about today and leave you with some resources. And I will keep the link open for the goal that was there. So definitely add your thoughts into that if you don't get a chance, if you have not got a chance yet. First and foremost thing is write down your SMART goals. Don't think in your head, write it down. Take a piece of paper or pen, write it down, or use any online software to write it down. And I will share my worksheets with you. You can write it down over there as well. The second day, I don't know why it's moved a little bit. The second thing is eliminate goals regularly. There is this concept of stack goals, right? A lot of people, what they do is they keep stacking on their goals and they never finish their first goal. So there is one golden rule I have for my daily work is that if I'm taking one more task in my plate, I have to remove one task from my plate because there is no way I can sustain. If I'm taking a new role or new project, I have to talk to my manager that this existing project I cannot do unless I can manage both in terms of time and energy and all of that, and I take something else out. So it's really, really important that you manage your time accordingly and you start your career right up front. If let's say you're a student with these goals and mindset in mind, because I wish somebody had told me when I was starting my career. So it's important that you do that. The third thing is align your surroundings with your goals. And I think, again, Dr. Amna mentioned it briefly, and I really liked it when she said that you have to have the right environment around you to go and get your goals. And it affects your EQ, it affects everything that you do. Sometimes you don't have the right environment to support, right? So I say this in a lot of my talks is there is a support system you're born with, and there is a support system that you can build. Be it with your friends or your colleagues or any of these online communities that I really enjoy. So you can build that support system around you. Let's say in the same example of Python, I can find a Python developer group very easily these days. There could be a Slack group or Discord group or somewhere that I can join and I can really find help very easily. So these days in this digital age, there shouldn't be anything stopping you for doing that. The fourth is prioritize. Now that you have set your goals, now you know what you need to go and do that quadrant thing that I mentioned, and do that delegate and those the urgent and important metrics that I shared. Do that with every task that you do, and you'll see you have to do it for a few times, and then you get used to it. It becomes a habit. So human beings, there's another research that shows that if you do something for 21 days, you get used to it. So if you do this exercise 21 days, I'm sure you will get a hang of it and it will become a practice for you. And then the last thing is that I talked about long-term sustainability, because you don't want to go in and do all of your energy today and forget about it. And again, If you can't keep yourself accountable, ask some of your close friends, your parents, somebody else to keep you accountable. In my case, I'll tell you an example. My mom is my biggest accountability, right? So if I tell something I want to really go, I just tell her, and then every other week she reminds me, "Have you done that? Have you done that?" And that's a great way for me to be accountable. So you can always find somebody like that in your life. If you don't, please reach out to me. I can be your accountable person in that case. Then I can make you accountable for the goals as well in that case, and just keep reminding you and giving you the right motivation towards that. So sometimes you really need that, especially in the example of the losing weight example, right? We all start very, very great with that. But if you don't have somebody who goes with you exercise every single day, or at least pushes you to go towards it, I'm sure you will forget about it or you'll not do it anymore. So it's important. So this is the tools that I use. Again, these are the ones that I use on my daily basis. There are a lot more tools available. You can look at what works for you, whatever is in free and things like that. I literally have a pen and paper or notebook with my goals and stuff. So I like to write down, although I'm in computers all day long, but I like to really write down. And there is again a research shown that if you really write it down, it has a little bit higher impact than typing it in other forms. But you can use that. I also use Trello boards. They are free. You can create Trello board. And then on that Trello, I have these panes there where I see there's my to-do list. There is my doing list that I'm doing currently. There is the things that I've already done. There are the things that I've delegated. And then I have a list of things that I don't want to do. They were in my list that I wanted to do, but I moved them that they're no more relevant or I cannot do it. So I literally have that Trello board for everything. And I have labels literally for my work, my personal, my PWiC, my Woman Who Code, and all of the other works that I do. And then Notion is another one. Somebody is writing that it has really changed their life. I think Aisha is writing that. But yeah, it's really, really great tool. So these tools are really there to help you to go get your goals and things that you want to do in your life. This is the link that I was talking about, OKR. Again, if you just search OKR on Google or Bing, you will find a lot of articles related to that. And then last but not least, these are the worksheets that I mentioned. And if you go and download them, you should be able to take do as many printouts as you want for your goals. And they should look like this. There is the SMART goals. There is the end of week review that I didn't talk about in this presentation, but actually look at end of week, what has really worked, what has not worked, what should I do more, what should I do less. This is just more of me reflecting on my week. You can do on monthly basis as well, or whatever works the best for you. And then what I'm grateful for. Again, I'm really happy that Amna mentioned that in her slides, that there are things that you forget, but if you write it down and you look back, and then you really feel that you really achieved something, right? So what am I grateful for my health, for my family, for the work that I got done, and all of the friends and family and connections that I have, right? So I write them down explicitly, and it's important for me to look back, and it really helps me feel better. And then this is the work that I talked about, things you did in this work, make a list of them, then make a time chart on that, how much time you spent on those, and then you divide them into this and see where you end up with. So feel free to download this, share this with other folks in your circle as well, and I hope this helps. And I would like to leave with this one. This is the priority chart. This is again proven research. This is an ideal world. Once you do for your day, try to see how much of that is there. In an ideal world, that if everything goes according to your plans, then this is the case it should be. What it will be is that you should have some stuff which is necessary but unimportant. For example, cooking food. It's necessary. You have to eat food, right? Or getting food, right? Those are things that are not that important towards your goal, but they are necessary. So ideal world, you shouldn't have anything in the high time spent and low priority. You should have not much stuff that like high priority but no night time spent, but you'll find that you're doing that. This is the ideal world. I know it will not be the case, but work towards this ideal scenario. So that's the end. And This is my LinkedIn, Twitter, and Medium. You can reach out to me on any of those. You can reach out to me through PWiC. I hope you find this session useful and you're ready to go and achieve your goals. I know we are way above our time limit, but I can take a couple of questions if anybody has. So Aisha or Miriam, if you, I'm scrolling through the chat, but if there are any questions that I missed or anything, please let me know.
Yeah, I don't see any questions for now.
Great.
Actually, Muazma, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Miriam.
So every time, so let's say I want to do a course on machine learning, right? And I start doing a particular course that I find very interesting and helpful. And I'm like into the first chapter or the second chapter, and then I come across another course that I find that maybe it would be more helpful than the previous one. And then I leave the previous course and then I start doing the new course. And it goes on just like that. And I never end up finishing even a single course or, completing that goal. So what should I do in that case? Because like there is so never really figure out what would be the most useful and fruitful for you. So what should you do in that case?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question, Aisha. Thank you for bringing that up. I'll give you another analogy and maybe that will help you. So that can, and I've personally gone through this, so I know exactly what you're saying. If let's say you go and buy a t-shirt or a shirt or a dress or whatever, right? Let's say you go on Khadi today and you go and buy that the shirt that you really like. It's in the right color and everything. Now, another day you go back to the Khadi website and they now have a sale, right? You will feel like, oh, you bought it so expensive. Now it's on a sale. In that scenario, my question back to you is, what are you going to do?
Well, I already have the dress, I suppose, so I can't buy it again.
Yeah. So that right there is your answer. So the thing is, human beings are creatures of like interest, right? They anything new, shiny, sparkly, cheaper, things like that, they actually attract us more than what we already have on plate. It's true for relationships as well. I don't want to go into that detail, but it's like you are in a relationship and let's say you find somebody else and somebody else seems to be better than the person that you're already in. And it's something I know I'm sidetracking here. But what do you do with that? Do you leave the current relationship for the new person? No, right? Most of the situations you should not. But if that's the right thing, you should do it, then you do it. But what I'm trying to say is, in that situation, being grateful and that list that I mentioned about being grateful will help you. Being grateful for the things that you're doing and you're making. What I write in my journal is being grateful for making progress. That to me is great. If I am making progress toward the course that I'm already doing, that is enough. And that is something you have to teach yourself that is enough. Because there's always in your life, there is going to be another shiny thing, another shiny course, another something that might seem better. But if you actually start that and never finish the previous one, the same thing will happen again and again and again. So sometimes letting go is also really important. And this is mostly turning towards a motivational talk, but I would really, really encourage you to be for everyone. Like I do suffer from the same thing. Is like I'm doing some work and now I get distracted with something else. It's true for being searching for something. And I'll give you another example. Let's say I'm searching for the goal setting workshop and searching material. And I go on one link, I read through everything, and now I find another link and I go over there. I already forget what I wrote in the first one. So sometimes it's important that you eliminate the noise. I have in my calendar focus time 2 hours at least every single day for the work that I want to do. And those focus hours, I turn off my email notifications, I put my phone away, I put everything off. And my team and everybody knows about that they can't reach me in those 2 hours. And I focus on the work, be it a piece of code or a document that I'm writing. And the reason I'm sharing this is, again, you always will have distractions. You will always have something shiny that will need your attention right in that moment. So setting up those boundaries that Dr. Amna talked about, it's really important. And that those boundaries that's something you have to set. You put your heads like little like a horse, like focus on the thing that's in front of you, focus on that course that you've started and finish that. Because achieving that one course, finishing that is way better than, let's say, starting 3 courses and never finishing them. So I hope I answered your question. It's a practice. You have to keep doing it, and learn to say like no, learn to say like not focus on things. A lot of people reach out to me, let's say in the times that, and they would not get a response, and it's okay. What's the worst that will happen? Once I'm back, I can respond that I was busy. I can get back to you. The same thing for the courses, it applies over there as well. So focus on the things at hand, try to finish them, take the steps towards finishing them. If let's say you're having a lot of issue doing that, find somebody, some close friend or a mentor that can keep you accountable as well. So let's say you started a course, tell your friend or mentor that I've started this course, please ask me in 3 weeks if I finished it or not. Or please ask me next week that I finished it or not. And make them the nagging person that is always coming to you. Have you finished it? Have you finished it? And I'm sure that if you really like them and they like you, you will be able to do that. So this is some of my techniques. They work for me. Again, this is something. Nothing is ideal. You get distracted. Human beings are that way, and there's no ideal solution. But taking those boundaries, setting those boundaries, and defining your own boundaries. Like I will get this thing done. And tell yourself again and again, that helps.
All right, thank you so much, Muazma. If anybody has any more questions, feel free to unmute your mic and ask them.
There's one question in the chat, which is how does one create a balance between personal and work-related goals? These are both important for me.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I will tell you again how I do it. Again, I don't know if this is the right way of doing it or not. This is based on my experience and my circumstances that might not 100% apply to you. So I actually, in the Trello board that I mentioned, I actually plan everything for everything. So being it my personal or professional, like my goals, not my daily, let's say, Jira task and things like that, but my goals and the plan towards my goals, I actually plan them together. And in my prioritization exercise that I was showing you previously in that quadrant, I actually do that together as well. Because you will find very, very quickly that the things that are important, because if you ask anybody on their deathbed what they really wanted to do, they would never say, I wanted to be a CEO of the company. They would always say, spend more time with my family, do X, Y, Z, all of that. But a lot of people will not admit, but they will not say that they work towards earning more money. But you need money to survive, and you need money to thrive in certain cases as well. So again, being very blunt about those things, writing it down, that what you really need to do and plan them together helps. So question about how do you balance is I kind of balance them on the same scale. So spending time with my family is important. This is towards my goal of achieving better relationship, better connections, better future, right? So this would be high important, high time spent quadrant, and I will put that there. Something working on my project that really important for my next, let's say, promotion. I need to really work hard towards that. That would be in the same quadrant. And then between the two, again, I would have certain part of the day spent on one, certain part of the day spent on other. So that's how you life is a balancing act, right? So there is no one or the other. You have to kind of do a balance in certain cases, like integration, because some days one will take over the other. Somebody is sick, somebody is going through something in your life, you have to take care of that. So yeah, simple answer to that is balance both, figure out in the same grand scheme of your time. Again, at the end of the day, you have the same amount of minutes, right? So you have to balance everything together. And make sure that you have enough energy for both sides, your personal and professional as well. Again, if you spend too much on one or the other, in the long term, you will not be happy. And this is again backed by research, backed by everything. So that would be my answer towards that.
There's another question. How to keep the positive attitude and motivation during the whole process?
Yeah. Again, this is something everybody has a different way of keeping positivity in their life. I really like what, again, Dr. Amna mentioned briefly about being close to your faith, whatever religion, it doesn't matter, like whatever you follow. Being close to me, that helps to have that sounding sense in that sense. That gives me belief in what I'm doing, and I'm doing it for the right reason. It helps me. The other thing that helps me keeping my positive attitude is, again, the friends and family and the support system, right? Human beings are social beings. We can't be living on ourselves and just be happy and all of that. In long term, it doesn't work. You need folks around you. Even if you're, let's say, a single person, you need friends, you need family, you need support from someone to keep going and keeping the positive attitude. To me, like the biggest motivation or biggest positive attitude is the phone call that I have with my mom. And again, I'm very transparent here, is every single day, just that 5 to 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever minutes, call to my mom is really my dose of positivity, right? I talk about everything with her. I talk about everything. So to me, that's my motivation for the day. Spending that 1 hour with my kids is the positive energy that I get from them. All of the stuff. So again, find that thing for you. What is that? It could be reading a book. It could be going to spa. It could be anything. Whatever is that self-care for you, find that and keep that. And there is no way that you will not have negative thoughts, right? You will always have negative thoughts, and they're good, right? They are good for you to be sane, because if you're always having positive thoughts, I think then there's something else which maybe you're not paying attention to, because you always have negativity around you, right? It's how you behave and how you act in those situations is important. And it would be wrong for anyone to say that they are never down. I would never say that I was never down. I had so many ups and downs in my life. But how you deal with those situations is important. And being positive always all the time is also not good for your mental health, right? It's okay to not be okay as well. But when you have these goals, these failures are important. We didn't talk much about that in this session. Maybe we can do a follow-up with a great speaker that I know of, talks about failures a lot. And the strategy for failures is, if you fail fast, learn from it, and then try something else, right? And that is something that should keep you going. There are a lot of great articles, meditation, things like that also help folks. You can search on those things and you'll find a lot of those things. To me, support system is important, and that is something that helped me keep my attitude to be positive. For you, it could be something else. So I would really encourage you to find out what is that keeps you going.
I would like to add to this. So my motivation and positivity remains if I complete all of my daily goals. So at the end of the day, I have that sense of achievement that I completed everything that I had to do today. So today was a good day. And, that motivates me to keep on doing that thing every day. All right,
Yep.
I suppose we don't have any more questions. If you do have any more questions, please follow up with us and send us a message on PWiC Facebook page. And with that, we would like to end the session. Thank you everybody for joining us. This was a joint session with PWiC and Islamabad. We hope the session helped you understand and control yourself and your emotions and ways in which you could achieve your goals. And thank you for joining us. Here.
Thank you. So Aisha, Amna, and Mariam, if you want to stay, maybe we can take a quick picture. I forgot to take that at the start.
Sure.
Sure. Do you want us to resume our videos or?
Yeah, yeah, if you can, that would be awesome. Amna, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here, but I just need a few seconds. I'll be back.
Sure, sure. I'll stop the recording now.